welcome our next speaker as well. Hails from Western Governors University, Dean Paul Bingham, who is Vice President and Dean of the College of Information Technology at Western Governors University. Also served 20 plus years in the FBI. So very happy to welcome Dean Bingham to the stage. So Dean.
Hello. I don't trust technology, so have paper here today. Move these a little bit. I'm glad to see there's actually some people here. I thought about inviting my mom and the Bridge Club when I saw that this followed lunch today, but thank you. And actually, when we think about the future, I was sort of wondering if you'd finish your dessert before I'd finish my presentation, and we'd just leave it up to time to discover those mysteries. But as stated, let's see, make sure my clicker's going. There we go. I'm from Western Governors University and really pleased to be with you here today. When we contemplate the future cybersecurity workforce, we at Western Governors University think we know a little bit about who they are. And that's because, if I could be so bold as to say, an increasing number of cybersecurity professionals are graduates from Western Governors University. Over the past 5 years, we've graduated 9,600 students from our cybersecurity programs. We currently have over 13,000 full-time enrolled students in our 2 undergraduate and 1 master's degree program. Over the next 5 years, we will add another 16,000 graduates to the cybersecurity workforce, each with a degree from an accredited institution accompanied by industry-recognized certifications that are integrated into our curriculum. So that means over a 10-year span, we will have contributed over 25,000 WGU graduates to the cybersecurity workforce. Thank you. I'd like to start by telling you who our students are. 13% of our students are female. We're teaming with foundations such as Reboot Representation to increase that number, especially in the Black, Latina, and Native American populations. Those historically underrepresented populations form 33% of our student population. And we're teaming with institutions or organizations such as Perscolas to increase that number as well. 22% of our students are from low-income households. We're working hard to provide the skills, industry certifications, and the diploma that will allow them to get higher-paying jobs, which in turn will provide a favorable return for their tuition investment. And finally, 38% of our cybersecurity students are either active duty military or military veterans. Most received some on-the-job training while they were in the military, and they're either looking to advance their military career or have a leg up when they transition from military service. All of our students, like all of us here today, are dedicated to collectively securing and protecting our digital, national, or global infrastructure, one network or one device at a time. If we look to the future of the cybersecurity workforce, say 10 years from now, we need to look at today's 6th graders. That reinforces the need of the vital necessity of incorporating cybersecurity education into almost every aspect of the K-12 curriculum. Not only do we need to prepare our students to be good online citizens in an increasingly interconnected world, we also need to increase awareness of cybersecurity career opportunities so that when students are asked what they want to be when they grow up, increasingly, cybersecurity professional joins the ranks of President of the United States, doctor, lawyer, and astronaut. So now that we know a little bit about who the members of the future cybersecurity workforce are, I'd like to talk about what they need to prepare for. To better understand the future, I looked to the past. 10 years ago, the National Security Agency issued 2 issues or editions of the Next Wave, the NSA's review of emerging technologies. Both issues were dedicated to cybersecurity and the need to develop a science of cybersecurity, or perhaps fundamentally to increasingly apply the principles of scientific discovery and research to the field of cybersecurity. So if you don't mind, let's walk down memory lane together for a minute. Topics about the future of cybersecurity 10 years ago included supply chain security, the need for a science of security that incorporates practices from the field of scientific research, including a formal process of discovery, testing, and sharing of information, which would result in uniformity of standards and practices. It was summed up in this statement: our national reliance on networked information systems demands that we approach security engineering with the same rigor that we expect in other engineering disciplines. We should expect designers of our digital infrastructure to have a well-understood scientific foundation and advanced analytic tools comparable to those used in the production of other critical assets, such as bridges, aircraft, power plants, and water purification systems. Another topic was the importance of discovering data relationships with predictive value rather than continuing to create defenses that reactively responded to attacks. In the editor's column, Robert Mushaw suggested that even with a generally acknowledged need for science, the temptation will be to continue fighting security fires with a patchwork of targeted tactical activities. Good tactics can win a battle, but good strategy is what will win the war. And then they discussed a theme that they referred to as interdisciplinarity. I had never heard that word before, and thankfully this is not a spelling bee. They cited that in addition to the critical traditional fields of computer science, electrical engineering, and mathematics, perspectives from other fields are also needed. I interpret that to mean that we need diversity in cybersecurity, a diversity of perspectives that adds creativity to our approaches and our solutions. This comes from diversity in our people, as well as diversity in our educational preparation. So 10 years ago, what were the predicted needs of the future cybersecurity workforce? A rigorous, investigative-based approach to discover, share, and deploy solutions, predictive modeling, better supply chain security, and more diversity in our workforce. So it's been 10 years. How do you think we've done? Do we look back and laugh at how easily those problems were solved in comparison to today's issues? Seemingly, those issues from 10 years ago are very relevant to what we're still facing today. You'll hear me say this again in a few minutes, but my review of the past demonstrated that while the modes and methods of interacting with our systems seem to come and go, the underlying principles and technologies don't change too much. And that's securing those is where we need to spend our time. Okay, 7 years ago, another issue of the next wave addressed cybersecurity. What future-looking themes were we talking about 7 years ago? A need for a common set of definitions and standards. A growing need to address cyber physical systems and smart devices, including everything from satellites to self-driving cars to smart homes, what we refer to today as IoT devices. Power grid security, social engineering, phishing, and building secure and resilient software from the start. All right, it's been 7 years. How do you think we're doing? Do we look back and laugh at how easily those problems were solved? Once again, startlingly relevant to today's conversations. Okay, one more issue of the next wave. It's from January of this year and looks to the future of hardware. To predict the future, they too looked at the past. In their editor's column, David J. Mountain and Robert J. Runser cited how advances in shrinking the size of transistors enabled incredible advances in hardware. For anyone left with some dessert, and if you'd like to sprinkle a little data over the top of it, here you go. Between 1971 and 2005, a period of 34 years, Intel achieved an 80,000 times increase in computing power, raw computing capability, while at the same time shrinking the size of their transistor on their microprocessor by 12,000 times. Recognizing that no exponential can continue forever, and that limitations such as power dissipation, leakage currents, on-chip wire resistance, other things that I don't quite understand, admittedly, and the rising cost for fabrication facilities, that one I do understand, They create plateaus to progress, and so the race is on for research into new materials, novel architectures, and new domains for computation. As they stated, these advances will be less predictable, require a greater diversity of solutions, and will demand highly creative ideas from the research community. Have we not heard over and over those themes like unpredictable, a need for greater diversity, and a need for highly creative ideas before? Some of the future technologies in play are the use of magnetic effects to manipulate information, combining optics and mathematics to create optical coprocessors, techniques for in-memory processing, and with a nod to the same topic 10 years earlier, how to harden the supply chain through automated accountability. Now, before we all ditch dessert and head out for a drink, because quite frankly, we're starting to ask ourselves, how will we ever secure these things? Let's go back and talk about who the future cybersecurity workforce is comprised of. That's right, we're going to talk again about today's 6th graders and how they're uniquely qualified to succeed in cybersecurity. Even though they're caught right between the boundaries of Gen Z and Generation Alpha, I suspect anyone who was a K-12 student during the last 2 years will rightfully be known as the COVID generation. Distinguished by 2 principal characteristics. The first is a comfort with, or perhaps even an expectation of, increased automation in all facets of their lives. The other is their ability to adapt to change, however unexpected or unpredictable it may be. Both of these characteristics will aid them in their future cybersecurity careers. First, automation. Improvements in both predictive modeling and quicker computational speeds are driving increased automation in consumer and industrial devices. Those same technologies are enabling increased automation in security prevention, monitoring, and detection capabilities. The sheer number of connected devices and online transactions, I would even say, or characterize the fluidity of the interconnectedness of our devices and networks as relationships as opposed to transaction-based connections. So I'll start over. The sheer number of connected devices and online relationships among those devices will increasingly necessitate automation in our security prevention, monitoring, and detection practices. Through automation, the lines between physical and virtual will continue to blur. The rising generation will feel right at home with this and will thrive in an environment of automation. The second characteristic is their ability to adapt to change. To illustrate this, let's talk about their 4th and 5th grade years, or their COVID years. For the most part, these students adapted in massive numbers to new and unpredictable changes in the mode or method of interacting, from in-person to online, from online to hybrid, with masks, without masks, back to school, and back to online again. Somehow, through it all, they were able to remain focused on the underlying principle of what was really going on. They were learning, progressing, and moving on to the next grade. This ability to adapt to changes in modes and methods of interacting while maintaining focus on the underlying principle will be critical for their success as future cybersecurity practitioners. Let's use authentication as an example. Historically, a password was synonymous with authentication. As passwords have evolved to more complex passwords, passphrases, biometrics, voice, and evolving FIDO principles, like our 6th graders have already learned, the method or mode of interacting with the system is not what matters. The underlying principle, in this case, authentication, which still requires some form of a token, ticket, or hash to be securely generated, passed, and verified, is what really matters. Because of their well-practiced ability to adapt, whether to unexpected or unpredictable change, or to shifts in the methods or modes of interacting, the rising generation's ability to keep focused on the underlying principle will help ensure their success as future cybersecurity practitioners. Finally, for the future practitioners, as well as for ourselves now, working together and contributing to efforts such as NICE, InfraGard, OWASP, and other common standards and information sharing forums will allow us to integrate the principles of scientific discovery and information sharing envisioned 10 years ago, so that we can more easily incorporate each other's best practices and iteratively contribute to collectively improving our craft. The result, as I mentioned earlier, will be an increasingly secure global digital infrastructure which benefits all of us. That's it for today from WGU. Please stop by our booth on the exhibit floor and let's share some ideas together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. One more round of applause for Paul and Roy, please. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go to our next series of sessions. Very excited. We're going to be doing 4 birds of the feather session. If you've wanted to engage with the NICE community, this is your opportunity to do so. We have 4 coming up in the different breakout rooms. The first one's led by Thomas Trevathan, is looking at K-12 cybersecurity education. So if you're interested, you can do that. Karen Wetzel from NICE will be leading the NICE Framework Users session. Tony Bryan will be leading the apprenticeships and cybersecurity session, and Dr. Davina Pruitt-Mental will be leading the cybersecurity skills competition sessions. I also want to invite you to the exhibit hall at 2:15 p.m. where we're going to have our tech showcase. Believe it or not, cybersecurity certification companies do get along with one another, so they'll be coming together to talk about how do we best fix the gaps in cybersecurity workforce. So look forward to you at the next session and enjoy the birds of a feather. Thank you.